Hi, I'm Michael James. Hit subscribe and let's dive into today's story.
I thought I found my forever until late night calls and hidden texts revealed the truth. The man who swore I was his future was living a double life with a wife and kid.
I've always believed that the best love stories start with some kind of spark, something cinematic, something out of a movie. Mine didn't feel like fireworks at first. It felt like laughter, like comfort, like finding a pair of shoes you didn't even realize fit you perfectly until you slip them on. That's how it was with Daniel. We met at my cousin's engagement party. Honestly, I hadn't even wanted to go. I was exhausted from work, grumpy, and dreading the endless small talk with relatives I only saw once a year. But I went because my mom begged me, saying it would be good to be social for once. I remember standing near the bar, sipping a watered-down cocktail, trying not to roll my eyes at yet another silly party game, when he appeared beside me. Daniel leaned close enough for me to hear him over the music and whispered, "Is it just me, or does this feel like high school gym class all over again?" I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. He smiled at me with those calm, knowing eyes, like he had been waiting for that laugh. From that moment on, we were locked in conversation. He wasn't flashy, not the loudest guy in the room, but he had this quiet magnetism. He made everyone around him feel seen. Within 10 minutes, I was telling him about the ridiculousness of my office politics, and he listened like it actually mattered. By the end of the night, I had given him my number without hesitation. That first week, we texted until 2, sometimes 3 in the morning. His messages were witty, thoughtful, and never the dry, wide D types I was used to. On our first date, he took me to a tiny Italian place tucked away on a side street, the kind of restaurant you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. We split a bottle of red wine, and he insisted we share dessert. "This is dangerous," he teased as he held up a spoon of tiramisu, "because you're going to get used to me feeding you sweets." And I did. Within a month, he was a fixture in my life. Flowers appeared at my desk just because. He'd send me playlists with songs that somehow matched my moods. He remembered names of my coworkers, even the annoying ones I ranted about. It wasn't just the romantic gestures, it was the way he made me feel important, like the center of someone's universe for the first time in years. When he introduced me to his friends, they were warm and welcoming. One of them even pulled me aside and whispered, "You're good for him. I haven't seen him like this in forever." It made me glow inside, like I was doing something right, like I wasn't just dating him, I was saving him. Things moved fast after that. He started leaving a toothbrush at my place, then a drawer, then some clothes. He joked about paying half the rent, though he lived in a sleek downtown condo that looked straight out of an architecture magazine. His place was always spotless, minimal, expensive. When I stayed there, it felt like I was borrowing someone else's life, someone richer, more put together. He made me feel like I belonged in it. Of course, even early on, there were small things I should have noticed. His phone was always face down when we were together. He sometimes disappeared into late-night work calls without much explanation. Some weekends, he suddenly became too busy to see me. Whenever I asked, though, he had an answer. Calm, smooth, disarming. He made me feel silly for even asking. Back then, I trusted him completely. I wanted to believe in the fairy tale, and he made it so easy to. When he looked at me and said, "You're my future," I didn't question it. I pictured us married, with kids, vacations, a house with a porch swing. My mom adored him. My friends envied me. And Daniel made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. Looking back now, I don't know if I was naive or if he was just that skilled at hiding the truth. Maybe both. Because what I didn't know, what I couldn't even imagine, was that Daniel's love wasn't whole. It wasn't even real. The betrayal was already woven into our story long before I ever saw it. And while I laughed at his jokes, while I kissed him goodnight and dreamed about forever, his lies were growing like cracks beneath the foundation of everything we were building. I thought I was writing a love story, but really, I was walking straight into a nightmare.
By 6 months in, Daniel wasn't just my boyfriend. He was woven into my routine, into the fabric of my everyday life. He was the first person I texted when I woke up, and the last voice I heard before falling asleep. His good morning messages came without fail, always with a little humor or a sweet reminder to eat breakfast. When I had a stressful day, he'd show up with Thai takeout and a bottle of wine, settle me onto the couch, and rub my shoulders until I forgot why I was upset in the first place. His presence was addictive. It felt like oxygen, like I couldn't breathe properly when he wasn't around. That summer, he suggested a weekend getaway to the mountains. Just the two of us, no distractions. I remember standing on the wooden porch of the little cabin he rented, wrapped in a blanket with a mug of coffee, the smell of pine heavy in the air. He came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and murmured, "This feels like home." I nearly burst into tears right there. For the first time in years, I felt safe, chosen, loved. After that trip, everything seemed to accelerate. He was there for every family holiday, smiling and charming everyone. He came to my nephew's birthday party and spent an hour on the floor assembling a Lego set, winning the admiration of my brother-in-law and my parents alike. My mom actually pulled me aside at one point and whispered, "Don't let this one go. He's a keeper." I blushed like a teenager. He fits so seamlessly into my family that it was hard not to imagine him as part of it permanently. We even started talking casually about kids. He'd make little comments like, "If we had a daughter, she'd have your eyes," or "We'd never survive a teenager with your stubborn streak." At first, I thought he was joking, but the more he said things like that, the more real it felt. We'd toss around baby names, laugh about which one of us would be the stricter parent. I told myself this was the man I was going to marry, the father of my future children. And yet, the cracks were there. Tiny, almost invisible at first, but impossible to ignore once I noticed them. One night, while he was showering at my apartment, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I swear I wasn't looking for trouble, but something about the way the screen lit up caught my eye. The contact name was just M. No last name, no emoji, no details. The preview was hidden. My stomach tightened. I froze, staring at it until he came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist. Trying to sound casual, I asked, "Hey, who's M?" Without missing a beat, he smiled, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "It's work. She's a client who's driving me crazy about invoices. You don't want to know the details, trust me." He even pulled up a message to show me, a bland text about deadlines, and my suspicion melted away. He was so smooth, so believable, that I felt guilty for even asking. But that seed of doubt didn't disappear. It rook tooth. A few weeks later, we were out with his friends at a bar when one of them joked, "Man, you always disappear on weekends. Still keeping secrets?" Everyone laughed, including Daniel, who quickly changed the subject. At the time, I laughed too, but later, lying awake in bed, I replayed it in my head. Disappear on weekends? What did that mean? When I asked him about it the next morning, he brushed it off with practiced ease. "They're just giving me shit because I don't go out drinking with them like I used to. I'd rather spend time with you, and they can't handle it." He kissed me then, and I melted. Once again, my doubts dissolved under the warmth of his attention. Still, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was off. I told myself I was overthinking, that maybe my past relationships had made me too paranoid. But in quiet moments, when his phone buzzed face down on the table, when he was vague about his schedule, when he seemed distracted, I felt it like a stone in my chest. And yet, I stayed. I stayed because the good outweighed the doubts, because he told me he loved me every single day, because he talked about forever, and I wanted so badly to believe him. By the 1-year mark, I was all in. I started browsing apartments closer to his office, imagining the life we'd build together. I pictured engagement rings, wedding dresses, baby showers. My friends envied me. My family adored him. And I told myself that every small crack in the story was just my imagination. But deep down, in the quiet places of my mind I didn't want to face, I knew better. I knew something was lurking beneath the surface. I just didn't know how devastating the truth would be when it finally revealed itself. The first undeniable crack in Daniel's carefully constructed image appeared one Sunday afternoon. We had spent the weekend at his condo, lounging in pajamas, ordering too much takeout, watching Netflix like an old married couple. It was one of those lazy days that make you think, yes, this is what forever should feel like. Then his phone rang. Normally, he ignored calls when we were together, unless it was work. But this time, he stiffened. His entire body language shifted, like he'd been caught. He snatched the phone off the coffee table, glanced at the screen, and without a word, walked into the bedroom, shutting the door behind him. I sat frozen on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen. My mind raced. Who calls on a Sunday afternoon that requires that much secrecy? 10 minutes passed, then 20. I walked quietly toward the bedroom, pressing my ear to the door. His voice was low, muffled, but I caught fragments. "I'll fix it. You know I love you. Can't talk right now." My stomach flipped. He came out a few minutes later, face pale but plastered with a smile. "Sorry about that. Just some family drama." "Family?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He had told me early on that his parents lived out of state, and that he wasn't close with them. I barely knew anything else. "Yeah, long story," he muttered. Then he kissed me like it would erase the questions and said, "Don't worry about it." I wanted to believe him. I always wanted to believe him. But that night, I barely slept. I kept hearing his voice behind the door, the softness in his tone. The words, "I love you." A few days later, while he was in the shower at my apartment, his laptop sat open on my desk. He had left it logged into his email. I wasn't a snooper, at least I didn't used to be. But curiosity clawed at me until I finally sat down and looked. Most of it was boring work stuff, contracts and client follow-ups. But then one subject line stopped me cold. "This weekend. Heart." My hand shook as I clicked. The email was from someone named Melissa. The words blurred in front of my eyes as I read. "I hate that you couldn't stay longer. The kids miss you already. I miss you even more. Counting the days until Friday. Love you always, M." I nearly dropped the laptop. My body went cold, numb like I had stepped into freezing water. My mind scrambled to make sense of it. Kids? Love you always? This wasn't a client. This wasn't family drama. This was something else, something much bigger. I snapped the laptop shut the second I heard the shower turn off. When he came out, towel around his waist, humming some tune, I plastered on a fake smile and asked if he wanted dessert. He kissed me, completely unaware that my heart was hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. That night, lying beside him, I stared at the ceiling, the words of that email echoing in my head. The kids miss you. Love you always. He slept soundly, his arm draped over me like nothing had changed. I felt trapped, suffocated, like I was drowning in lies. The next morning, I drove home in silence. I couldn't stop replaying everything. The phone calls, the weekends he disappeared, the jokes his friends made, the evasive answers. And now this email. It all connected in the worst possible way. But I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. Daniel was too good at twisting words, too good at making me question my own sanity. If I accused him now, he'd find a way to explain it all away. I needed something undeniable, concrete proof that he couldn't talk his way out of. So I made a decision. The next time he disappeared for one of his mysterious weekends, I would follow him. I would find out the truth with my own eyes. And whatever I discovered, I knew one thing. My life would never be the same after that.
It didn't take long for my opportunity to come. The following Friday, Daniel called me after work, his voice smooth as silk, and said, "Hey, Dabe, I'm stuck late with a client dinner. Don't wait up, I'll probably crash at the condo afterward." His words were casual, but my stomach clenched. I knew this was it. I told him, no problem, even teased him to have fun schmoozing, and hung up. But the second the line went dead, I grabbed my keys and jacket. My pulse was pounding so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel as I parked 2 blocks from his building and waited. Around 8:30, I saw him emerge from the lobby. He wasn't in his usual work attire. Instead, he wore a sharp blazer over a crisp shirt, no tie, like a man dressed for a date, not a late meeting. My heart lurched. I started my car, keeping enough distance to follow without being noticed. He drove across town and pulled into the parking lot of a little bistro I'd never been to. Intimate, candlelit, the kind of place couples went when they wanted to feel like the only 2 people in the world. I parked down the street, my hands clamped tight on the steering wheel, my chest so tight it hurt to breathe. And then she appeared. A tall, elegant brunette stepped out of another car. Even from a distance, I could see the familiarity in the way she walked toward him, the easy confidence in her stride. Daniel's face lit up with a smile I hadn't seen in months. Not the polite grin he gave coworkers or the half-distracted smirk when texting, but the kind of smile he used to give me. Before I could even process what I was seeing, he leaned down and kissed her. Not a friendly peck, not a casual greeting. A kiss. Long enough, deep enough, intimate enough to shatter me in an instant. The air left my lungs in a gasp so loud I startled myself. My vision blurred with hot tears as the 2 of them slipped inside the restaurant, hand in hand, like a couple who belonged together. I sat, frozen, numb, staring at the spot where they had just been. The truth hit me like a freight train. This wasn't a client. This wasn't family drama. This wasn't some misunderstanding. He was cheating, blatantly, unapologetically cheating. I don't even remember the drive home. I only remember collapsing onto my bed, sobbing so hard my entire body shook. Every memory, every sweet word, every "you're my future" he had ever whispered replayed in my mind like broken glass, cutting me from the inside out. He had built a life with me while giving his smile, his kisses, his touch to someone else. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The man I loved, the man I thought I knew better than anyone, was a liar. And yet, beneath the heartbreak, my mind wouldn't stop spinning. Who was she? How long had this been going on? Why did his friends make those cryptic comments? And most of all, why wasn't I enough? That night, I barely slept. I paced my apartment until the sun rose, staring at my phone every time it buzzed with his texts. "Dinner ran late. Wish you were here. Miss you." Miss me? He was probably still with her when he wrote that. The rage inside me burned hotter than the grief. He wasn't just lying to me. He was crafting an entire double existence. And I realized with a sickening jolt that if there was one woman, there might be more. The next morning, as I sat at my kitchen table with shaking hands wrapped around a coffee mug, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't just confront him blindly. He was too good at weaving lies, too good at making me feel insane for asking questions. I needed undeniable proof, something he couldn't talk his way out of. So, I decided to wait, to watch. to follow again. I would find out who she was. And when I did, Daniel would finally face the truth he thought he could bury forever.
The weekend after, Daniel fed me another excuse. My mom needs me, he said over the phone, his tone casual, distracted. She's been having a rough time. I'll probably stay over there a couple nights. My chest tightened, but I forced a sweet smile into my voice. Of course, tell her I said hi. Inside, my blood was boiling. His mom? The same mom he barely spoke about? The one who supposedly lived 2 states away? The lies were piling so high I could barely see over them. I knew this was it. Tonight, I'd get my answers. When he left his condo that Friday evening, I was already waiting a few cars back. He drove out of the city into a suburban neighborhood that looked ripped from a real estate magazine. Perfect lawns, pastel shutters, kids riding bikes up and down the sidewalks. My hands gripped the wheels so tightly they hurt. I followed until he slowed in front of a 2-story home with a bright red door. He parked in the driveway like he belonged there. I killed my engine and slid lower in my seat, heart hammering in my ears. The door opened, and then I saw her. Melissa, the same brunette from the restaurant. She stepped out onto the porch, and before I could even process the sight, 2 children barreled past her, shouting, "Daddy!" Daddy. The word slammed into me like a physical blow. I froze, my breath catching in my throat, as Daniel crouched down, arms wide, scooping the kids into his embrace. He spun him around, laughing, his face glowing with joy I hadn't seen in months. Melissa joined them, pressing a kiss to his cheek, her hand resting on his chest with the easy intimacy of a woman who had done it 1,000 times. Together, they walked into the house, the kids clinging to him, Melissa's arm linked with his. The door closed behind them, sealing off their perfect little world. And in that moment, my world shattered. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't just a fling. He had a family, a whole family, a wife, children, a life he had hidden in plain sight while telling me I was his future. Tears blurred my vision as I sat trembling in the car, my entire body numb. The photos I had glimpsed in his laptop folder came flooding back to me. Melissa's smiling face, the little boy with Daniel's grin, the girl with his eyes. I thought maybe they were old, maybe from another time in his life. But now I knew the truth. They weren't memories. They were his reality. And I was the other woman. The mistress. The side plot in his carefully curated double life. Rage boiled up inside me, mingling with the heartbreak until I thought I might explode. He had looked me in the eyes and told me I was his future while tucking his kids into bed at night. He had kissed me good morning after kissing her good night. He had built parallel worlds, and I had been blinded by love to see it. I don't remember driving home. I only remember stumbling into my apartment, collapsing onto the floor, and sobbing until my chest physically ached. My phone buzzed with a text from him. "Miss you. Thinking about you." I stared at it through tears, bile rising in my throat. He was probably writing that message from her living room, his kids asleep upstairs. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced my apartment like a caged animal, replaying every moment of our relationship, every lie disguised as tenderness. My heart was breaking, but underneath the wreckage, a new feeling began to spark. Resolute. Because if Daniel thought he could live 2 lives forever, if he thought he could keep me in the shadows while parading as a family man, he had no idea who he was dealing with. I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to burn his lies to the ground.
I couldn't carry it alone anymore. The weight was crushing me. Every time Daniel's name popped up on my phone, every time he called me babe or told me he loved me, it felt like acid burning through my chest. I needed someone else to know, someone to help me make sense of it before I lost my mind completely. So I called Rachel, my best friend since college. She had always been the one to see through men's bullshit, the one who never sugarcoated the truth. We sat in her apartment, wine glasses untouched on the coffee table, while I unraveled the story from the beginning. The flowers, the cabin getaway, the late night calls, the mysterious M, the email, the restaurant, and finally, the house with the red door. By the time I finished, my face was streaked with tears. Rachel sat in stunned silence for a long moment, her jaw clenched. Then she grabbed my hand and said, "You have to tell her. Melissa, she deserves to know everything." The thought made my stomach twist. My instinct was to protect myself, to hide, to run. What if she already knows? What if she turns on me instead of him? What if... She cut me off. "Stop. You're not the villain here. He is. And if she doesn't know, then she's living in the same lie you were. Wouldn't you have wanted someone to tell you?" Her words sank into me like a stone sinking into water. She was right. Melissa deserved the truth, no matter how ugly it was.
That night, back in my apartment, I found Melissa on Facebook. Her profile was filled with smiling family photos. Daniel with his arm around her, the kids greening on a beach vacation, birthday parties with balloons and cake. My stomach churned as I scrolled. Her cover photo was Daniel holding his daughter on his shoulders, both of them laughing in the golden light of sunset. My fingers shook as I typed a message. "Hi, Melissa. I'm so sorry to reach out this way, but I think you deserve to know the truth about Daniel." I couldn't finish. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might faint. What if she ignored me? What if he found out before she did? My courage faltered, and I deleted the draft, slamming the laptop shut before I lost my nerve completely. The next day, Daniel showed up to my door with flowers and takeout. He kissed me, smiled, said he had missed me. His eyes were so warm, so convincing, that for a split second, I almost believed the dream again. But I couldn't unsee what I had seen. His arms around his kids, Melissa's kiss on his cheek, the life he had with them that I could never touch. I played my role, smiled, acted normal, but inside I was screaming. Every "I love you," he whispered, was like poison in my veins. That weekend, I followed him again. Same house, same family scene. The children running to him like he was their whole world. This time, I came prepared. I took photos from my car, grainy, shaky, but proof nonetheless. Him holding his daughter's hand, him kissing Melissa in the driveway, him carrying groceries inside like a husband coming home. By Monday, I had everything I needed, proof so undeniable that not even Daniel's silver tongue could twist it away. I called Rachel, my voice steadier than it had been in weeks. I told her, I'm done hiding. I'm confronting him tonight. She offered to come with me, to wait outside if I needed backup, but I shook my head. This was mine to face. As I hung up, I looked around my apartment. The candles on the shelf, the throw blanket he always wrapped around us on movie nights, the coffee mug he kept by my sink. Every trace of him felt like an intrusion now, a violation. Daniel had built his double life on the belief that I would never find out, or worse, that I would never leave even if I did. He was about to learn just how wrong he was.
I set the scene deliberately. My apartment was spotless, candles flickering on the table, dinner laid out like we were celebrating something special. I wanted him comfortable, unguarded. I wanted him to think this was just another night with the woman who adored him. Daniel walked in smiling, carrying a bottle of wine. He kissed me on the cheek, hung his jacket on the chair, and said, "Wow, this is a surprise. What's the occasion?" I forced a smile that felt brittle. Just wanted to do something nice. My voice sounded too sweet to my own ears, but he didn't notice. He sat down, poured the wine, and started rambling about his day. I nodded, pretending to listen. All the while, my heart thundered in my chest. We ate, we laughed. I even let him feed me a bite of pasta like everything was normal. But the entire time, the truth burned in my pocket. The photos on my phone. The proof. The undeniable evidence of his betrayal. Finally, when the plates were cleared, I took a deep breath and slid my phone across the table. The screen lit up with the photo I had taken. Him in the driveway, his arms around his children, Melissa kissing his cheek. His fork slipped from his hand, clattering onto the plate. His face went pale, the color draining from his cheeks as he stared at the image. For a long moment, silence stretched between us. Then, finally, he whispered, "It's not what it looks like." The absurdity of it broke something in me. I laughed, sharp, bitter, nothing like the laugh he first fell for. Not what it looks like? Daniel, it's exactly what it looks like. You have a family, a wife, children. You've been lying to me this entire time. He put his head in his hands, groaning. "Please, let me explain." "Explain what?" My voice cracked, fury boiling over. "Explain how you promised me forever while tucking your kids into bed? Explain how you whispered I was your future while kissing your wife goodnight?" He reached across the table, desperate, eyes shining. "I do love you. I love both of you. I didn't mean for it to go this far." The words made me recoil, in disgust. Both of us? Are you insane? We're not toys you can collect. We're human beings, Daniel. Tears welled in his eyes, but I felt nothing but rage. He started talking fast, the way he always did when cornered. "Melissa and I, we've been broken for years. We were basically separated, I swear. And then you came along and you made me feel alive again. I couldn't let you go. I thought I could balance it. I thought I could make everyone happy." "Happy?" I spat the word like it was venom. "You think this is happiness? You've built a house of lies, and you dragged me into it without a second thought." He slumped forward, defeated, then looked up at me with pleading eyes. "Please, don't tell her. If Melissa finds out, it'll destroy everything. The kids." That was the breaking point.
the moment of clarity. Instead of begging me to stay, instead of fighting for us, he begged me to keep his other life intact. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. My hands were trembling, but my voice came out steady. You want me to protect your lies? You want me to keep her in the dark so you can keep playing house in two different worlds? No, she deserves the truth more than anyone. He lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. Please, I'll fix it. I'll choose you. Just don't do this. I yanked my hand away like his touch burned. You don't get to choose me now. You lost that the moment you kissed her in front of your children. His mouth opened and closed like he wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. For once, Daniel was speechless. I walked to the door, pulled it open, and stood tall, despite the tears trembling to spill. Get out. He hesitated, as if he thought he could still talk his way back in, but the look on my face must have told him otherwise. Slowly he stood, grabbed his jacket, and walked out. I slammed the door behind me, my whole body shaking. And as the echo of the slam faded into silence, I realized the confrontation was only the beginning. Because now, the lies were in the open, and I still had a choice.
I didn't sleep after he left. Candles burned to stubs while I sat on the floor with my back to the door, the tremor in my bones settling into a steady resolve. By dawn, I'd brewed coffee I didn't drink and written a dozen drafts of the same message. At 9, my hand stopped shaking long enough to send it. Hi, Melissa. I've been in a relationship with Daniel for over a year. I didn't know about you or the kids. I found out 2 weeks ago. I have proof, if you want it. I'm so sorry. The typing bubble appeared at once. Then, call me. I pressed dial before fear could change my mind. She answered on the first ring, breath unsteady. How long? I told her everything. The cabin weekend, the late calls, the mysterious M, the heart email, the restaurant, the red door, the children shouting, Daddy. She inhaled sharply at that, a sound like stepping on glass. She didn't cry. She asked questions. Dates, times, screenshots, and I answered each one. When I sent the photos from my car, there was a long silence. Then, in a voice that split something inside me, she whispered, Thank you for telling me. I don't blame you. I blame him. This ends today. After we hung up, my phone lit with Daniel's name again and again. The voicemails swung like a pendulum, pleading, furious, apologetic, manipulative. I love you. Please don't ruin this. I can fix it. How could you do this to me? I can change. I blocked his number, then unblocked it, then blocked it again, as if toggling could toggle the reality he'd built. Rachel came over and listened while I played one voicemail on speaker. Daniel sobbing, promising to leave Melissa, calling him his soulmate, swearing he'd prove it. Rachel stopped the playback. That's not love, she said. That's panic. By late afternoon, Melissa texted. He's home. I'm about to confront him. Then, it's true, all of it. He lied to me, to the kids, to you. I've asked him to leave. I don't know what comes next, but thank you for the truth. I cried, then. Messy, furious tears I hadn't let fall in front of him. Relief was jagged. Grief still there, but it finally had a shape. I wasn't crazy or paranoid. I had been standing in an earthquake and calling it wind. That night, she changed her profile photo to just her and the kids. A couple of Daniel's friends messaged me privately. We wondered. We're sorry. I didn't answer. He showed up at my building anyway. On the intercom camera, hair uncombed, eyes red, he buzzed 3 times before I pressed the button and said, Leave. Please. I'll marry you. Therapy. I'll tell everyone. Tell your children, I said, and cut the line. For the next week, I dismantled him from my home the way you pick glass from a wound. Slowly, carefully, knowing you'll still find a shard months later. The toothbrush, the mug, the sweatshirt that smelled like cedar. I filled a box and wrote his name on it, then crossed it out, then wrote, Return to sender. Melissa and I traded a few more messages, practical things, lawyer referrals, a school counselor for the kids, a line she sent me that I saved like a talisman. We didn't break each other. He broke us. On Friday, I took the box to his doorman. He wasn't home. For a second, I saw myself the first night I came here, eager, certain I'd finally been chosen. I set the box down and signed the receipt with the kind of signature you use to end a story. Outside, the air bit my cheeks. I walked past windows that reflected me back, older now, sharper around the edges, but upright. Melissa sent a last update. He moved to a short-term rental. The kids are okay tonight. I'm breathing. I put my phone away and kept walking. Not toward anything grand, just away from what I would no longer carry. The world didn't look brighter. It just looked honest. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough to begin.
The weeks after the confrontation blurred into one long stretch of survival. I went to work, answered emails, nodded in meetings, but it was like living inside a glass bubble, everything muted, unreal. I'd close my office door and cry silently into my hands, then fix my makeup before stepping out, as if nothing had cracked. Nights were worse. My apartment felt like a crime scene. The blanket we used for movie nights still draped over the couch, the dent in my pillow where he used to sleep, the silence in the kitchen where he used to hum while making coffee. Every object was a reminder. I boxed things up, donated what I could, but ghosts don't pack neatly. They linger. Daniel kept trying. Even after Melissa kicked him out, even after she filed for divorce, he found ways to reach me. Blocked numbers, emails. One message read, "I'll prove I can change. You and me, that's real. Melissa was obligation. You are love." Another, darker, "You destroyed me. You turned her against me. I hope you're happy." I didn't answer. Each attempt to pull me back only confirmed what I already knew. He wasn't mourning me, or her, or even the kids. He was mourning the collapse of his control. Still, I wrestled with guilt. Melissa and I had burned down his double life, but the ashes lay heaviest on his children. I kept seeing their little faces, running to him, shouting, "Daddy!" Did I take that away? Or had he done it long before I showed up? Therapy became my lifeline. The first session, I wept so hard I couldn't speak. The therapist waited patiently, then said, "What happened to you is betrayal trauma. Your brain is still untangling the lies." She explained how gaslighting warps your sense of reality, how being lied to on that scale leaves you doubting everything, even your own judgment. I nodded through tears, because yes, every time my phone buzzed face down on a table, my chest seized with panic. Every time a man smiled at me in line at the grocery store, my mind whispered, "What's he hiding?" Trust had become a foreign language, one I no longer spoke fluently. But slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. Rachel was relentless in her loyalty. She dragged me out for walks when all I wanted was to curl up in bed. She sat with me through sleepless nights, reminding me I wasn't alone. My family, once enamored with Daniel, rallied around me, furious on my behalf. My mom told me, "Real love doesn't hide in shadows." Melissa and I exchanged messages occasionally, updates on the kids, on lawyers, on survival. She told me the kids were confused but resilient, that they were asking fewer questions at bedtime. She said she had moments of relief now, like she could breathe in her own house again. "We'll both heal," she wrote once. "Maybe slower than we want, but we will." I held on to that. Even so, some days I felt like a shell of myself. My reflection looked older, wearier. My laugh felt strange in my throat. At times I hated myself for not seeing the signs sooner, for ignoring the red flags. But my therapist repeated, "He lied deliberately. You trusted as you should in a relationship. The failure isn't yours." That sentence became a mantra. The failure isn't mine. Months passed. I deleted his emails, one by one, like erasing stains. I stopped checking Melissa's Facebook for updates, stopped feeding the obsession with what his life looked like now. Instead, I focused on mine. I signed up for a pottery class. I painted my bedroom a new color. I started running in the mornings, feeling my lungs fill with sharp, cold air, reminding myself my body still belonged to me. Grief didn't vanish. It rarely does. But it softened. Where once the thought of him was a knife, now it was a bruise, tender but healing. And underneath all of it, one truth crystallized. Daniel hadn't broken me. He had broken his own life, fractured his own family, destroyed his own trustworthiness. I was collateral damage, yes, but I wasn't the rubble. I was still here. And for the first time in months, I began to believe I'd be okay.
It has been nearly a year since that night I slid the photo across the table and watched Daniel's mask crack. A year since Melissa and I joined our fractured truths and burned his double life down to embers. Sometimes I think of time in before and after. Before I knew, when I believed I had finally found my forever. And after, when every belief shattered but I learned what it meant to truly see myself. Melissa divorced him. I followed updates in fragments, through her occasional texts, through whispers from mutual acquaintances. She moved into her own rhythm, fiercely focused on her kids. She told me once that they were sleeping better now, no longer waiting at the door for a father who might or might not come home. I admired her strength, the way she rebuilt without bitterness leaking into her children's lives. She turned the rubble into foundation stones. And though our contact has grown less frequent, I still think of her as a kind of battle sister, someone who understands a language of betrayal few others do. Daniel, from what little I know, is adrift. A friend of a friend mentioned he rents a small apartment downtown. He tried dating again, but word of his double life spread faster than he expected. Women are wary. His charm no longer drowned the truth. There's a grim satisfaction in that. Karma doesn't always strike cleanly, but sometimes it lingers like a shadow no one can shake. As for me, I've changed in ways I didn't anticipate. The first months were survival. The middle months were grief. Now in this stage, I find myself stronger, if scarred. Trust doesn't come easily. When someone leaves their phone face down, my chest tightens. When a man says, "I love you," I feel an echo of doubt before warmth. But those scars aren't weakness, they're reminders. They keep me cautious without making me closed. What I've learned is this: love without honesty isn't love at all. It's possession, it's performance, it's a mask. Daniel told me I was his future, but what he really meant was that I was his escape hatch, his shiny distraction from the obligations he didn't have the courage to face. That isn't love. Love doesn't hide. Love doesn't beg you to keep secrets that would devastate someone else. Love walks in the light, even when it's hard. I've also learned that intuition is never wrong. Every time my stomach clenched at his phone buzzing, every moment his excuses felt too smooth, every time I laughed off a friend's cryptic joke, I knew. Some part of me always knew. I silenced it because I wanted the fairy tale more than I wanted the truth. Never again. If something feels off, it's because it is. Sometimes I still think about the girl I was when I met him, the woman who laughed too hard at his first joke, who thought she was building a forever. I want to hug her. Tell her she'll survive the storm, that she'll come out sharper, wiser, more whole. She'll hate the pain, but she'll think it one day because it will teach her to never settle for half-truths dressed as love. I won't pretend I'm glad it happened. Betrayal leaves a mark you don't wish for. But I can say this: it didn't end me. I am still here, stronger, clearer, more certain of my worth than I ever was before. If you're reading this and you feel that stone in your stomach when your partner hides their phone, if you hear the too smooth excuses, if you feel the shadow of doubt creeping in, listen. Don't silence your instincts the way I did. The truth may hurt, but lies will hollow you out from the inside. I believed I was living a love story. What I was really living was a double life written by someone else. But the ending, this ending, belongs to me. And I promise myself this: I will never again mistake shadows for home.
Another story ends, but there are always more. Subscribe and stay tuned.